We like to say that Zoe is the original OpenClaw. We started working on it really in early 2025, first lines of code probably in April 2025. And this came from our background in kind of like doing this inference platform that I mentioned where we had albums and sandboxes. And we were like, we should really just like kind of, instead of building this developer platform, build the consumer version of this product. And that's how we arrived on Zoe.
Hey everybody, welcome to CTO Confidential. I am here today with Ben Guo, who is one of the co-founders of Zoe Computer. I'm really excited to have you on the show today, Ben. Welcome.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, so obviously before we jump into what you're building, which is really cool and really, I want to say like it's a hot thing right now. So we're definitely going to get into that. I'd love to hear a little bit about your origin story, kind of how you started, how you got here.
Yeah, totally. Long journey of many miles, right? I grew up in Baltimore mainly. So on the East Coast, went to Harvard. I originally studied neuroscience, and I kind of got into programming just by getting on the kind of iPhone app. Like the mobile train was happening back in like 2008 to 2013 when I was kind of in college. And yeah, I just like randomly decided to build an iPhone app because everybody was doing it. And it was so much fun. Like it was incredible. It was like the first time I built something, ran it on my phone and touched it. I was like, oh my God, like this is so cool. And I was like, I have to do this. So I switched to studying computer science, got to programming, and the rest is history basically. I ended up working at Venmo as my first job out of college in
Very
2013,
cool.
which was awesome. And it's because I was into mobile apps and like it's a very natural fit to like work in a consumer app company. It's a pretty small team back then. At Venmo, it was like maybe 20 people in New York. It was awesome. Learned a ton. Still really good friends with a lot of the folks there from that era. And then I ended up working at Stripe as my next job in 2015. So pretty early, I just knew about Stripe because Venmo had been acquired by Braintree. So I just knew about kind of like the payment processing space. And I knew that like Stripe was very legit. It was still pretty small in 2015, still definitely a startup. It was like maybe 100 or so people when I joined. But yeah, it was awesome. I just like felt really good about the team when I met them and was very excited to work with them. Learned a ton there. I ended up staying at Stripe for like 8.5 years. So that was like the bulk of my career. And then now I'm here.
That's a tech lifetime, 8 years.
Yeah,
Honestly, like
I know,
I
right?
don't think I've stayed. I don't know many people who've stayed anywhere for 8 years, so it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I remember that era because I kind of I graduated college in '08, and I want to say I got into this industry right around the same time when like responsive design was a big thing. Everybody was getting the
Yeah.
smartphones, so we were like rebuilding lots of websites. And then Venmo, I remember, of course, working in New York City. Venmo was the thing because now we could split the lunch bill. That
Yeah.
was like that was a huge problem back then. People don't
Totally.
realize like everybody had that friend that didn't carry cash, and when Venmo
Yeah.
happened, I remember being like, "You need this app." Like,
Exactly.
yeah, we could split the bill officially. So it was awesome. And then of course everybody knows the Stripe story, which is just to me that's like almost Titanic that those two brothers kind of just like came up with this crazy idea. And it, now that we have AI, I remember just doing some research into like what would it take to build a Stripe, like the banking
Mhm.
relation, like all of
Yep.
the things are astronomical, like in terms of like the banking relationships and how to do all these card programs. And so it's kind of like we forget what it was like before Stripe. Like not that like Braintree and PayPal were pretty revolutionary, but Stripe has really revolutionized that. Um,
Totally.
so I think that your current company, the merger of neuroscience and computing, right? AI comes out now. It's
Yeah.
useful. Were you into ML before, or really was it post LLM?
Yeah. It's a little bit of tinkering, but really kind of post LM is when I kind of like jumped on the train with my co-founder Rob, who has done a lot of ML in the past. He actually started in 2023, like pretty soon after kind of like the ChatGPT wave. We were like talking about how it's probably time to do something together. We've been friends for a long time. We met at Venmo actually on that early team. And yeah, we started actually as an inference company. So we were doing like kind of like ML infrastructure. serving open source models in this kind of like agentic framework, which was pretty cool. We like had LLMs and sandboxes, and LLMs could like write and run code in sandboxes pretty early, like really before people were doing that much AI coding or kind of agentic workflows. Anyhow, that's kind of like how we got to this whole kind of like Zoe idea and this kind of like consumer app. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Yeah, because I think that was one of my earliest thoughts when I was using the LLMs. I was sort of thinking the same thing, like, oh, it would be great to like let these things run a little bit wild. I just don't want it to happen
Yeah.
on my machine because I don't know what's going to happen. So like let's sandbox them. And then of course like we started Claude Code came out and all of these things. It's so interesting too that like it felt like OpenAI happened and then suddenly LLMs were like everywhere. And I don't like everybody was working on these things in secret, and then from the
Yeah.
outside world, it felt like the whole world was working on it in secret, and then one person opened it up, and it says, "It turns out we're all working on this," and now the competition is hot, and I love this idea that so I think you bring up such an interesting idea that like if you before LLMs, you sort of had to study ML and that was like a whole field of study, and now LLMs kind of opened up AI to like the broader world, which then opened up software development to everybody else. And I love one of your philosophies in Zoe Computer, which is this idea that everyone is a builder now. And I kind of feel like that myself in the sense that like I didn't really get into like TensorFlow and things like building ML
Mhm.
models before, but I'm interested
Yeah.
now. Very much the
Yeah.
way I think you get into mobile apps. Like I got into software through front end because I liked building a real thing and it wasn't like building this abstract thing. So I think it's so cool. So kind of bringing into what is like, how would you pitch Zoe Computer to the audience who may not know what it is?
Yeah, totally. We like to say that Zoe is the original OpenClaw. We started working on it really in early 2025, first lines of code probably in April 2025. And this came from our background in kind of like doing this inference platform that I mentioned where we had LLMs and sandboxes. And we were like, we should really just like kind of, instead of building this developer platform, build the consumer version of this product. And that's how we arrived on Zoe, toying around with like different versions of that. And we realized that like, clearly you need to give the AI its own computer. It should have like kind of a cloud computing environment that it can kind of like do stuff with. That's what Zoe is. Zoe is like kind of a very simple, set up, batteries included version of OpenClaw, where like it's just gives you a personal computer in the cloud or AI kind of can live on it, can do stuff on it for you. You can like chat with your AI over text or over Telegram or whatever channel you want. And there's tons of like useful built-in tools and integrations that make it really powerful.
That's awesome. That's yeah. I love this idea because when OpenClaw first came out and it was called like Claude Bot, and I used to
Yeah.
joke. I said I go. I'm not sure if this is like a play on like a Boston accent. I was like or like then they got sued by Claude. I go I guess this Claude. It was funny that it came out and I thought to myself exactly kind of like you. I was like, this is good for developers, but I don't want to buy a Mac Mini. I don't want to have I was like what about the future? And so I look at Zoe even today as a developer. Zoe Computer appeals to me more even than OpenClaw because I have my computer. Like I run. I love my computer. I don't really feel comfortable giving OpenClaw like free reign on the thing that I use to make my living. I'd much rather it be in this like sandboxed environment. And it's incredible. So the other thing that I was thinking of, like when you deploy, like do we have like options to get like size of machines? What are kind of the options available?
Yeah, totally. So the cool thing about Zoe is it's some people do run OpenClaw like in the cloud, like on a VPS, for example. But when you run OpenClaw on a bare metal VPS, it's quite limiting. If you want an affordable price, it's like probably like pretty like rough hardware, like a pretty small machine. But with Zoe, you get kind of an elastic computer, so like you can scale up depending on your plan up to like kind of like quite a beefy machine. You can look at our pricing page, but we've got lots of different options, and people are running tons of things on Zoe. It's a data center grade server, and you can host things on Zoe, which is like quite different, I'd say, from like kind of an OpenClaw running on a Mac Mini or on a VPS. So you can host websites, you can host like Postgres, you can host N8N. People are hosting all sorts of crazy stuff in their Zoe computer, which is like really more than just a kind of like computer. It's like a cloud computing environment. It's like AWS for normal people. So that's how we think about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is really cool. Yeah, because my mind, because I as a service provider, my mind immediately goes to like, oh well, people would pay me to set up Zoe for them.
Yeah.
Like, and then I
Totally.
wouldn't
Yeah.
have to manage infrastructure because that's like,
Exactly.
I saw that with people where it's like, oh, we'll set up OpenClaw for you, but that was like, oh, but then I got to like set up the environments and I got to maintain all of that. And like you
Hmm.
talked about the scaling, that's so appealing to me that you can even host the apps there and
Yeah.
deploy them because one of the things I've noticed, like getting into Claude Code, I'm using Claude Code, and people are like, well, why don't you use it from your phone and use their machines? And what I'm noticing is when I don't have like the local databases and all that stuff, the output is worse. Like when it's just leveraging the code as opposed
Yeah.
to being able to like run the Rails console and like get into like some
Totally.
kind of a sandboxed DB. And with Zoe, I could actually do that. I could be like, hey, let me set up the whole environment
Totally.
and now it basically would be like using my home computer and I'd get all the tooling that I needed for it, and be able to supervise it, which is kind of important.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Very, very. I love this. I love the idea. How is the so you guys you have data center great. Are you guys are using your own data centers or are you guys like doing other cloud providers?
Yeah, so Zoho is by nature it's multi-cloud, so it kind of runs on different cloud providers. It's kind of like an abstraction over kind of like a cloud computer, and we've kind of like designed it in this like portable way. So right now we can kind of like run your Zoho in different cloud providers. Eventually, we plan to also make it self-hosted or self-hostable. So the goal here is really like portability and ownership. So we want to give you like this packaged, virtualized, kind of elastic cloud computer that you can take with you and run anywhere. And that's kind of the goal.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. And so, in terms of the LLMs that you integrate with, is it? I'm guessing you integrate with the conventional. Do I use my own plan? Do you guys kind of like how does that part work?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so our goal is to be very like kind of intelligence agnostic. So we want to give you access to like all the top frontier models. So you can use like OpenAI, Anthropic, just via us. You can also use open source models, which we're now offering for free. We have like a couple very good open source models that are kind of free on our platform just for people getting started. You can also bring your own API keys if you have like your own subscription, or kind of like an enterprise. Often people have like these enterprise like kind of contracts where they want to do bring those OpenAI or Anthropic API keys over to Zoho. And finally, you can also use coding agents as your kind of like token source. So you can run Claude Code or Codex or Gemini inside of Zoho. You can like kind of log into them, and then Zoho can like attach to that process. So you can like chat with Zoho or like use them in the context of like Zoho stuff. Yeah,
So I can use my Claude Max plan, which I know is like
exactly.
I
Yeah,
was using open code for a minute and then like had to come off because that was like a big
yeah,
thing where they were like you can't use the max plan. So like it's
yeah,
really that's very cool. Very,
yeah.
very cool.
Yeah. We
So I
do it
love the
in a
options.
different way than open code. So it is definitely possible. Yeah,
Yeah, because it's effectively your own machine, and it is
exactly.
sandbox to you. So that's like the
Yeah,
coolest. That's really the coolest part, I think, because I'm running into that now more with a bunch of our clients that are more security conscious, and like for example, we work with some people in the film industry, and they're extremely security conscious, especially around the
totally. Of
LLMs and like the theft of IP and
course.
really wanting like, hey, you must use like the enterprise. So what's cool about Zoe is now you can actually have this kind of out there in the world, and it can kind of maintain that sandbox for you. Um,
Exactly.
and then in terms of like, is there a phone app? How would I like if I was on the move? I know a lot of people want to code on the move.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it yet, but
Yeah,
we'll get there.
yeah, yeah. Working with AI on the move is awesome. I do it all the time. So we don't have a mobile app, but you can use the web app just in mobile web. But also, my main way of working with Zoho on my phone is I just text it. So we have an iMessage integration where like you can just connect to your phone number with Zoho, and then you can just talk to your Zoho over text. You can also use Telegram, and we have Discord and other channels coming soon.
Oh, this is awesome. That's really, really awesome. Yeah, because I'm going to I'm gonna have to check that out too as a future. I know that there's like I end up in a pitfall with it because my wife will tell me she's like Claude has like replaced social media
Oh
because
yeah,
it's
totally.
so easy to be like building. So I'm like I have
I
to put like a
know.
moratorium. But again, I've always been like, if I didn't have to direct it so much, like if I could trust it, this is that would be pretty huge because I find myself still in like the you know, prior to hearing this, where as I said, the Claude code in the app, I found that the output, just like it's very limited because it only has access to the code. It can't like sandbox and I've seen it do some weird things. So I'm always like, I still want to do like my tail scale and tmux and all that, but that's like that's not the world's best scenario. So like this for me hits like such a happy middle ground where I'm like, hey, I actually now have a machine that could run my email and handle like all of our tickets and stuff coming into
Yeah,
our like our systems and seeing what it could solve. Like, that I think is the biggest thing. Like being able to say like, hey, you're going to be locally developing with an actual like you could run a headless browser is my guess and like
totally.
do
Yep, you
all
can.
the things. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like that's kind of the missing piece for me. So I'm really psyched. This is
Hell
awesome.
yeah.
So
Amazing.
so let's talk about like some of the challenges, right? So what has been the hardest thing about building this technology from your perspective?
Yeah. So like it's interesting. It's like a kind of twofold product challenge because like we're building a consumer product. Like we're really like building Zoe for normal people. So not kind of like the technical audience that kind of can set up OpenClaw or even like knows what OpenClaw is. A lot of people outside of the audience are coming to Zoe and really excited about it. And sometimes they haven't even vibe coded before. They haven't touched like Claude Code or Lovable, but maybe they've used like Squarespace. So there's definitely a big like just design challenge in kind of like making all of this stuff like kind of approachable and simple enough for like my mom to use or like kind of the various users we have that are like SMBs. And I think like it's really important to think about democratizing the technology in that way. And I think like the real way to do it is to like make it simple enough and like kind of well designed and just like thoughtfully abstracted. So that's a ton of like the challenge for us. It's just like kind of the design challenge, just kind of like revealing basically like all of the complexities of cloud infrastructure in a way that like kind of makes sense for everybody else on earth that isn't a developer. So that's a big part of it. And then there's also kind of like a lot of the kind of tricky infrastructural side that's like kind of under the hood. It's like we are ultimately kind of in the business of building like a cloud infrastructure company for consumers. There's a lot of stuff under the hood that like maybe people don't see. Yeah.
That's one of the most surprising things. Like people have asked me about AI. How has it changed my job? And I was like, well, it's made a bunch of stuff I used to spend a lot of time on much easier, like building websites and front end. But I've had to go way deeper on DevOps than I ever cared to
Yeah,
before. Where I'm like,
totally.
man, this is the new bottleneck. And I just did this show with my co-founder. I was like, listen, when a website goes down or something goes down, and you've got all these pull requests to deal with and everything, it's like you need to know the cloud like well, and it changes where we have to focus our time now. Instead it's like, okay, well now we got to learn all this hardware, and I did a bunch of like rag database stuff, and I go, oh, but then you get
Yeah,
into chunking and how do I want to vectorize this and what database to use and what are the advantages. AI helping me with all of that, but
yeah,
again, things that I had to kind of research and learn that were not thoughts that I had before, because obviously we're spending hours upon hours like getting the slideshow working on a website for the thousandth time. Now we don't have to do that anymore. So it's creating a lot more, and I think that like the other thing that's interesting is you guys are hiring right now in like a
we are.
historic
Yeah.
time when nobody is it feels like nobody is hiring. And so I'd love to hear what you're looking for the audience, because I know a lot, this is like the number one question that comes up is like, is software engineering dead? Do you know anyone that's hiring? How can I get a job with no experience? So as somebody who's hiring, what's your response to those types of questions?
Yeah, so we are definitely hiring engineers in particular. We have in the past hired some Zoe power users as well who are non-technical, who are helping with the growth side of things. So hired two of our like favorite power users to really help just grow Zoe and like spread the word. And they use Zoe a lot in their work. But on the engineering front, we are hiring. We're quite a small team right now, and definitely need to grow to just scale and support the product and build all the cool stuff that we want to do. It's a very complex product. You can check out our careers page on our website to look at the roles. But basically, we're looking for a mix of folks that are like kind of very product engineering oriented and kind of like have really high taste and experience kind of like building products, and especially in kind of like more newer kind of like 0 to 1 scenarios, and then also looking for really experienced kind of systems and infrastructure engineers.
I could see that. That was my first thought. Is I was like, the infrastructure has got to be crazy to deal with, especially when you're talking about like hosting apps and domains and
Yeah.
so it's I could see both being huge. Now you talked about the product engineer, the 0 to 1. I feel like that was always the challenge for me as an agency that dealt mostly with building. We build a lot of greenfield products. That's kind of like the number one thing that people come to us for. One of the challenges even before AI was the interview process. Do we do lead code? Do we not do lead code? Do we do a take home? What are your thoughts on interviewing? How do you guys interview? What's kind of yeah? Because I don't know where I land on
Yeah.
this yet.
Yeah, it's changed dramatically, right? Like even just in the last few months, like we have to totally adapt to like the new way of building. And for us, it's like first kind of classic, like 30 minutes, just like vibe check, talk about experience, stuff like that. And then the next step is like a 1 hour pairing session with my co-founder. And then we just work together on a problem that's like greenfield, totally open-ended. You can bring your AI tools, and the goal is just get as far as we can in that session in a collaborative way. And it's a pretty tricky open-ended problem. There's no like right answer, but there are like, right ways to approach it, even when you're using AI tools.
Very cool. Yeah, that's I had seen a job interview similar to that where it almost looked like it was like fake on the job application. It was like we wanted to look for something and translate it into Mandarin and it was almost like
Mm,
and you could tell that it was sort of an idea of like how would you approach a problem now that you have AI tooling, and it's sort of a tricky way. I've sort of felt the same where I'm not sure about it. I'm reticent to tell people to forget how to program because I'm like, hey, I think that you are still. I think that there's going to be a fair amount of like, hey, you're going to have to program without AI in some respects. So I always try and spend a little bit of every day actually hand coding something. And
nice.
it's not as efficient. I'm like, but I think of it like, I'm not a professional. A lot of people play guitar, so like I was like, just think of it as
Yeah,
like enjoying yourself, like and just
I like
stay
that.
stay
Yeah,
stay sharp. Yeah, and I use
yeah,
Claude Code for it. I built
yeah,
this
yeah.
thing called Code Dojo, and I just tell it like I need you to give me a problem, like a lead, like it's not like lead code. It's
Nice.
not
That's
to
cool.
just like
Yeah,
build it. And I find it's fun too to like try different programming languages because there's almost
totally.
no like there's no barrier to entry anymore. It's like, oh well, if I
Yeah,
can't figure it out, it'll work through it. But it keeps the mind kind of exercised. Even though in my day to day paid work, I'm using AI to drive like tons and tons of stuff. So
yeah. That's awesome. Good for you. Yeah, it's good to
yeah,
important to eat your vegetables still. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. I just don't want to become complacent. People, like I said, like
yeah,
use your all this time you freed up. I was like, use it to just like stay, like do things you've never done before, read books you haven't done. Like, I'm finding
totally.
architecture too of like systems and programs is still really big because the AI still kind of can screw that up, especially if you're building something novel. Like you guys are building something really novel, so it doesn't have like a frame of reference in the corpus of knowledge. Like
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
that's yeah. So that's another like interesting question. What are things that you find that AI is like not great at that you're like, hey, I got to really dive in on this.
Yeah, it's a good question. There are always things where you have to take the reins. I think I always use AI in some form, whatever I'm doing. But I think there are some tasks where like I really want to be in the driver's seat, or like I noticed my co-founder, our team doing this as well. I think there are some things where it's just like pretty meticulous. Like let's say we're doing like a billing integration or like something complex in our billing flow. Like you just have to like whiteboard that out and like draw it out and just spend some time like sitting with it with your human brain, just like thinking through like the edge cases and the system and just understanding it to really know that you're doing the right thing. I think I often run into that for like more complex like architectural work, where it really does require like poking around at the code, browsing, reading it, just like before. Maybe I'm not typing stuff anymore, but I'm definitely browsing the code in my IDE. I'm not just like kind of talking to the AI about it. I'm often like actually pulling up the files and like scanning them, because like I think when you have that like sense of place, like like it's like navigation in a code base. Like I feel like it's important to like know where you are and like kind of like know what these like kind of like landmarks are. I really kind of try hard to like keep that kind of like sixth sense strong, even though like I'm like using A a lot more. That's part of my kind of that's my version, I guess, of like eating my vegetables when it comes to coding, is like just like knowing where things are and what they do. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I totally agree. So, like you talk about the billing, the idea of billing, I love the idea that I can whiteboard or write something on paper now, because I still am a pen and paper, but I could take a picture and just be like,
totally.
now, like instead of having to
Yeah,
like mermaid, like learn mermaid or something like that, or like write a
yeah,
prompt to
yeah,
it again in the
absolutely.
tool. I'm just like, this is what I want. But then I love and that's another thing. Like I will like look at the code, but a lot of times I'm asking the AI to test itself. Like, did you think of this? Did you think of that? Like,
Totally,
and
totally.
kind of like pushing it harder and harder to improve the robustness of the test suite, and really and that's the other thing, is like not letting it get like you said, knowing where things are, not letting it get sloppy in its implementation, because I know, just as like a human, my time to develop things, even for AI, I find will go up if I let the code base get sloppy. Like if I'm like, hey, you still need to prune. Although I do find that it is, it's particularly with Claude Code, it's pretty good. Like it definitely does it makes pretty fairly good decisions. There are times when it gets too complex. I think I had recently had like an authentication concern that was getting huge, and like
Mhm.
Claude was not going to take the initiative to refactor it. So like I kept like
Yeah,
seeing it. I was like I'm gonna make you refactor it now. Like this is getting getting too big, and too hard to follow. So it's a very fun space. But I still think, like you said, eating your vegetables, it's still there. Um,
yeah,
Really cool. So the other piece of your that's unique to Zoe, and I think that it's I'm seeing it more and more. I did like a post on it that you're hiring in person specifically to come into the office in Brooklyn. So talk to me about that. Like, what was behind that decision? What were your feeling like versus like the remote kind of scenario?
yeah. So we are primarily based in Brooklyn, but I'm in SF right now, and we're probably going to also be hiring in SF, also in person. We'll kind of have a co-working space here in SF. But yeah, I think there's real benefits to kind of this high bandwidth communication now. Maybe even more so than before, because I think like in this age of AI, you're really able to lock in and just kind of like be a monk. Because just you talking to your AI coding assistant, and I think it's increasingly important to like have opportunities for like just like kind of spontaneous interactions. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we're very like kind of like hybrid friendly. Like sometimes people just want to like lock in and work from home for a day. But there's just a lot that can happen when you have like humans in a room together that I think is important, and maybe like a kind of leverage nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah, that I totally agree. One of the things that I had always struggled with too is because we'd had a number of like junior employees, and we're remote. One, because we kind of started that way. Like I started, this was like I was moonlighting. Like my co-founder and I, we worked full time, and like we remember the day that we were like, wow, we have enough work that we can like do this full time, but we remained remote. But one of the challenges was like for junior folks or newer folks, they said, I still think there's so much benefit to like sitting with a better engineer in an office and like pairing with them for a few hours. I still think there's benefit of just like getting together. We still get together at least once a month just to ideate. Like the cool thing is, back when we used to pair program or mob program, it was always like,
Yeah.
oh, one person has to drive and the other person's like directing, but you spent a lot of time like make a file here and do the now you don't do any of that, and it's really like, hey, let's just like get the ideas out and review the ideas.
Totally.
And I'm seeing it even when we film our show, like, yeah, and we do like a show where we try and rebuild like common SaaS products, and I'm like, it's way more fun to do that than to like actually watch someone like type out all the characters. And then
Yeah,
let's just talk about broadly. So I think about pair and mob programming all the time as like this might be the
totally.
dark horse of
Yeah.
development.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've worked with some folks at Braintree back when I was at Venmo, and they were all into this kind of like pair programming and stuff. I think a lot of them came from ThoughtWorks. And yeah, it was really cool to like kind of be immersed in that like kind of philosophy of building. I think we will see this like people that have these like very like strict regimens or like philosophies of like how to work with AI and a team and humans productively. And I think it will kind of resemble this like old pair programming mentality that some people had. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's and that was my other advice too. Like when people are coming to me about the job market, I do feel like the job market is open if you're willing to go in the office. So like
Yeah.
thankfully I was always within commuting distance of NYC. I think a lot of folks moved other places during COVID and kind of don't want to give that up, but I am seeing a rise in job postings, but the caveat being they really are looking for people to come back into the office. And as someone who works remote full time, I love it. I get to spend all day with my family. It's still fun. I think that if you could find that hybrid scenario, it is kind of nice to be able to get together with other humans. And like I love our meetups or when we have something going on. I'm always like, yes, we get to get out of the house. That live and work at home thing kind of gets a little weird. I should say.
Yeah.
Like sometimes
Totally.
I like come upstairs at the end of the day and like my family's like, all right, like time for dinner or whatever. And I was like, I was just like hoping to get out of here, like go for a walk. Now
Yeah.
I'm at home. I'm
Yeah.
working at home. You're
For
just here
sure.
all
For
the time.
sure.
So you
Yeah.
want to get out. So that kind of commute would be nice. Then in terms of like, what's your personal workflow? So when you're working with AI tools, like what's your kind of tool of choice, model of choice? What are your kind of personal uh, kind of preferences, I should say?
Yeah, no, good question. Yeah, I I like to use a lot of tools. Like I like to try out different tools. I'd say that like I use a mix of different things. I use Cursor as my daily driver, like for when I'm like working on something complicated and I really want to like browse the code, which is important in these complex situations. I'm like daily driving Cursor. That's like most of my local development workflow looks like. I'm doing a lot of parallel stuff in Cursor, like multiple tabs, and that's kind of like how I like do the big tasks. Often for smaller tasks, and I'm actually using Zoe, so I'll like spawn them off in my Zoe. I'll just like fire off. It's kind of similar to like how people use like background agents or like kind of these background AI coding things that people have. I just use Zoe for that. It has our code base in it and does a great job and like makes PRs. So I think for like smaller, easy to one shot kind of tasks that I feel confident that like a simple AI can do. I'll just like kind of tell Zoe to do it. And then yeah, for things where I like want to iterate more, then I'll kind of use Cursor. And then I think like for the most complex things that I want to do, I'll use planning mode. Or I don't actually even use the planning mode that's built into these tools. I will just like create a file. I have like kind of a skill like essentially that like kind of creates a particular kind of plan that I like, where like I really like this like kind of particular structure for my plan, and I have like these rules that like kind of are kind of just molded to me and how I like to work. And I find that like once I like have these like much longer plan files, the AI can work by itself for much longer without as much guidance for me. So I can basically spawn off these like plans that will go off for like 10 minutes at a time, and then I can like kind of pop between them. So that's kind of my ideal workflow.
Very cool. Yeah, one of the things the one you bring up kind of working in the Zoe environment too. Like if you're working locally, for me that I find myself not wanting to like dangerously run all CI commands, but
Yeah.
with like one of the envies of like if you do it in a Docker container or something, because then you don't have to sit there and do that approval flow, which can be annoying. And like some people, I think just do it on their local computer. I kind of prefer some kind of an isolated environment to do that in. And so like that so you can do that. Now that's interesting. Like with Zoe, you can do that. And like if you do like bricks, are the environments kind of ephemeral? Like does it like tear down? Like how do the environments work? Like if I totally mess something up, does it just like throw it out? We can restart?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's a persistent environment, but we snapshot it all the time. So you can restore your computer to a past snapshot. So that's kind of our approach to that. We are also working on letting you have like a multiple or kind of like more ephemeral like versions of your Zoe. So like basically cloning it and spawning like ephemeral instances of it.
Cool, cool. No, no, that makes sense because that, yeah, that would be like if I wanted to keep my databases and stuff in there. I even wanted to have like some kind of a persistent documentation or anything like that. I could kind of throw all of that in that computer, but I like the idea of the snapshot. So like it's a little less fearful. I kind of think of my own computer that way too. Like I try and put everything in Dropbox, and I started running Linux like I want to say at the end of last year, and so I'm always like prepared for like, oh, it's not going to restart, but don't worry, everything's in the cloud. I can just like I'll just reboot and start over because
Yeah,
I
totally.
kind of have these memories. I have to say it's been great though. I haven't had to do anything like that at all. But I always remember running Linux. I want to say like 5 or 6 years ago, being like the environment would just get just like bricked, and I'd have to like start over again.
Mm,
And I'd be like, oh, I guess I got to restart. But it's come a long way. So I
yeah,
encourage people to try it out if you're so inclined. It works now very well. So that's great. You like the cursor environment. I was using Zed for a little while. I feel I tried cursor
yeah,
when it first came out and wasn't. I was like not as big a fan. I went to Zed and I kind of got into the agentic mode more
totally.
slowly. And then I only switched to Claude Code. I want to say like I liked it, but also the max plan was like I started getting it
Yeah,
started getting
yeah,
expensive running the token environment. So
totally.
I know how
Yeah,
subsidized, so I'm taking
yeah. I
that.
know it's yeah, it's like 10x subsidized. It's pretty crazy. I actually also like Zed. I use Zed as like my terminal, and I run Cloud Code inside of Zed. So I will have like different Zed windows with Cloud Code running in it. Yeah, I do agree. It's important to make use of the Max plan for sure. Yeah, yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, you do like you like to test the different IDs. I'm
yeah,
definitely like I suppose a gearhead would be the term that I would use in like outdoor world where I like getting try I like tinkering with different things, and trying
yeah.
them out and
Totally.
feeling that. Is have you tried Codex yet?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I use Codex and Claude Code sometimes. Like I think it's nice to leverage both of those kind of subscriptions. Generally, I write a lot of code, so like I hit the limit of like Cursor and Claude Code and Codex quite quickly. So it's nice to like be able to rotate. Yeah,
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, because I was
yeah,
wondering about that with I have not tried. I've kind of stayed very focused in the Claude Code environment for a while now, but I haven't tried the Codex. But like people are telling me that like you need to switch. You need to try this one. It's better. And so like I'm always curious.
yeah,
Like, are there things that it's better at than others, or do you not notice much of
yeah.
a difference?
Definitely. Yeah, the vibes are very different. That's why I like Cursor because it's like easy to switch between them, or like I've tried OpenCode as well for just like that switching experience. But yeah, sometimes I do want to use Codex. It's like I think like less sycophantic in a way, and it's more terse. It's more like kind of like a true nerd. Whereas like Opus has this very like kind of like helpful, like encouraging vibe, which is like nice and pleasant. Like it's just a nice daily driver. But sometimes when I'm doing something more complex, I'll use like Codex for that. Like for making a plan, for example. Often I will lean on Codex for that. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty subtle, but they definitely have different vibes. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check it out because that's yeah those I did use some like Olama too, like I tried to use like Quencoder, and I want to give that another shot because I've wondered about that, like would it make some sense to try some open source models and see if maybe with more direction from me I can still get the same output. And so I've been thinking a lot about this, like maybe I have like a couple of problems, and I'm like, all right, given the like trying to get the same output out of different models just to get a feel for what they are like, which is sort of like the new programming, I suppose. It's like
Yeah,
trying
totally.
to get this like how do I get this result out of the thing that I want.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's this weird thing where like there's this new kind of skill issue, or like there's this new kind of skill basically where like it feels like if you have the right setup, like you use planning and you have parallel agents and stuff that like you should be able to do a lot more. And it's just a matter of like kind of like toying with the setup and your tools and getting it to a place where like you really are like maximizing like the amount of like token usage that you can get out of yourself as an individual, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I said. I have not been able to hit like the Claude Max usage limits myself. And even when I'm running, like I'll have like six different projects going. I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
still like, I still find that like, I'm like, it like goes up and I'm just like, and then it'll reset in a couple of hours. And I'm like, man, I don't know. I feel like I almost have to have more automation in place.
Mhm.
Like I was wondering that too. Like, do you have a lot of like, ticket goes into Jira or whatever, linear, whatever you're using, and auto picks up, or are you really kind of like guiding each task when you're hitting those limits?
Yeah, I'm very much a kind of like manual conducting person, but I do conduct in this way where like I have these like plans that are like very extensive that like help the agent go off for like 20 minutes. And then I try to have multiple of those happening. I think once you are in that kind of regime and you're kind of like switching between these like long running things, then you can really kind of like get to a very high degree of spend. Um, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, very
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
I could see that. Yeah, that's because yeah, I
Yeah.
could definitely see that because that's kind of like my It's like, do I have the patience to like make the longer plan? You know, like I usually make a
Yeah.
pretty good sized plan. I usually won't try and like one shot though. I'm definitely in the manual conductor camp. Like I know
Yeah.
a lot of people like using the project management tools, and I want to say that I was not very good with those tools even when I was hand coding. I was always more
Yeah.
of like
Same.
a just give me the task and I'll figure it out. Like, you know, I
Totally.
don't need the
Yeah.
so but I am seeing like some benefit to that, like especially when I'm dealing with customers and things. Like I wanted to see how much more I could like automate, like almost like I'm still here, but when my computer wakes up, I want you to like comb through all my tasks and find the one. So these are things I'm thinking about for Zoe, where I'm like, I want you to comb through all the tasks and I want you to pick up the easiest ones and try and like fix them and then email the customer that like here's a preview link or something like that.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, that's and that's I'm so interested too in the way that the application hosting is kind of working. So you have you're hosting multiple applications. You can point domains at them. Are those
Hmm.
all living on like their own machine? Like how are you at the point where people are getting multi machines then, or are they not? Like what's the situation?
Yeah. Right now, you get a single machine, and it's a very powerful machine. Like back in the day, we used to host a lot on like single servers, and that's still possible. For most use cases, it's totally fine. I think famously, like GitHub pages ran on like a single server and like served like millions of requests. You can do a lot with a single machine. Our hosting is kind of like built in to Zoho, hosted directly on your server. Even the Zoho application itself that you use is also yours and hosted on your server, which is kind of a cool model. So it's kind of designed in this like maybe decentralized way, where like everybody gets their own infrastructure running their own kind of Zoho application, which also hosts stuff. Yeah, so that it's pretty
Very
cool.
cool.
It's very well designed, I'd say, and like we've tried to make the networking very ergonomic, and flexible, so you can really host anything. You can host like a database or a website or anything you want.
Very cool. Yeah, so I guess you have like Nginx or Caddy or something like that that you can do the routing inside, and then for the Zoho program, so everyone's getting their own program, guessing their own database, and it's funny you mentioned that because I have a live application that's using SQLite, and I feel like slept on. I was like, man, this thing really handles a freaking ton. Like I was
Yeah,
always under this impression that it like couldn't like, oh, you need to use Postgres, you need to use some auto scaling, whatever, and I'm like, you know what? I hope to need auto scaling one day for one
exactly.
of my side
Yeah,
projects. 'Cause
totally.
it scales
Yeah,
and scales, and I'm like, man, this thing really can handle a lot. I was like, it's not falling over at all. So it's
yeah.
pretty wild. Yeah, we do a lot of that, and that so the application it's basically distributed across. Are you distributing it as packages? Like, what's kind of the architecture of that? Like since it's not like a traditional SaaS model, you're not running like a monolith,
Yeah.
which maybe would be easier. Was it tricky to kind of coordinate that when like everybody's machines need updates and all that stuff?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's definitely a tricky problem, and it's very novel, I'd say. It felt like a crazy decision at first when we were doing it. We're deciding to do it this way. But I think ultimately it's right, because it gives people the ability to ultimately like kind of customize like their own application, and make it the way that they want. So we have little bits and pieces of this, but that's the eventual goal for like the whole experience to really feel like it's yours and it's your own infrastructure and it's like totally portable, and even self-hostable eventually. So yeah, the bulk of the application, the web application that you use, is like running on your own infrastructure. The agent harness, we intentionally run outside of that, and it kind of like you can, of course, like kind of run Claude Code on your infrastructure itself and use that. But our harness is kind of like outside of the that stack, which it has different properties than I guess like running it inside, which is more like kind of like the OpenClaw model. Another intentional choice by us is to kind of like separate the agent harness from kind of like this kind of like cloud infrastructure that you have. Yeah, I think like, there's a lot of like interesting challenges when you're giving people kind of pretty direct access to the infrastructure. Very different
Yeah,
from kind
yeah.
of a SaaS model. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because I could conceivably be like making huge modifications
yeah,
I'm picturing like people getting into Claude Code in Zocomputer and being like, I want to make
totally,
all these modifications and it being incompatible with the next update. Um,
totally.
and I've been exploring this in our own work where we release like open source code bases, but then I have like a private version and a SaaS version, and like keeping those in sync without necessarily going into like building npm packages out of like every single little thing, because that presents its own problem of like, all right, I built a package, now I got to test it, and it
Yeah.
presents all sorts of weird issues. So I'm super curious as to like, yeah, what that's been like, and has anyone done that, like just like modified it beyond the ability to update, and you're like, hey, you got to wipe it out and start over.
Yeah, so sometimes it's pretty rare, but sometimes we do have to like go in and help somebody kind of like fix their machine, and we can do that. But generally we want to feel like this is yours. You can do whatever you want with it. You have root access. You can install things on it, and generally that won't interfere with like kind of like the stuff that we've set up. Sometimes people will discover the things that we've set up, and that's fine. And sometimes they'll like poke around in there and see how it works. But generally they're like pretty well isolated. That we are kind of like in your user space in a sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, and I could see that. Yeah, like I generally like the idea of like staying close to, what you want, what you guys want for the machine, because I want to be able to leverage, you want to be able to leverage the engineering team you're building to continue to get great
Exactly.
updates for the software. You don't want to be like
Yeah.
totally customizing it. So I love this idea though, like the getting the being able to have root access, so you really do have this this like robust machine, and your sign up process is super easy too. So it's not like trying to figure out AWS and EC2, which is no matter how many
Exactly.
years I use AWS, I still can't. I'm like, man, I still get lost in that infrastructure.
Yeah, totally. Console is insane. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just like, wait, where was that again? I was like, I tell people, I go, I think I have like $1.50 bill from Amazon that's been going for years, and I still can't figure out like where it's coming from, and they apparently can't tell me either, and it may be on some other account, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe they're just gonna bill me $1.50 indefinitely for this,
So
for
funny.
whatever this is.
I love it. I love
So
it.
I think it may, yeah, I think it may have been like the corporate card at some time was used, but it's very interesting how it how there's a whole industry, Vercel kind of being the one that people know now, of just like, you're on top of the cloud because you're kind of like abstracting away the horrible user experience of like having to deal with
Yeah.
all of that. So I love, and so you and in my Zo computer, I've got a full access to a computer. Do I have like things like S3 blob storage? Like if I was like, hey, I want to store all my photos, and like I'm getting off a
Mhm.
Dropbox and I want to throw it all, like does it
Yeah.
have like that level?
Yeah, totally. So we give you a fair amount of disk storage, so you can just like drop stuff in there, and they'll be like on disk on your server. We also have a network volume that gives you kind of like an S3 equivalent, and we are working on revealing this in different ways. But you can like publish kind of a folder similar to Dropbox and share it with people. So yeah, the goal is really the whole cloud. That's kind of what we're building. Is like, yeah, as you mentioned, it's like simplifying the cloud is really important. It has been important for developers and kind of like the new generation of developers with like things like Vercel. And I think the next kind of like phase of this is simplifying it for like your mom, my mom, like everybody else on Earth, and making the cloud accessible, like things like S3 or EC2, like making that stuff available to regular people. I think is really important for the next phase of personal computing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think about that all the time. Like even I'm thinking about just like if I wanted my wife to be able to like dump all her photos and like we're like the whole family, like let's just all share. Like I know a lot of like people who are tech forward, they've got like the NAS set up in their house and like they maintain it, but the family has no idea how it works. They just like dump it,
Hmm.
you know, they just get it all synced when they're on Wi-Fi and they're like, yeah, I just want to. And I thought about, I was like, man, it would be, these are the kinds of things that if you don't have a tech person in the family, you don't really get, but you kind of want that like
Totally.
sharing and this idea of the personal computer. And then the other thing I was thinking about is in terms of like developers building extensions for like, are you guys have plans for like an
Yeah.
extensions marketplace, things like that?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. We already have like a skill registry, and people can submit skills to our GitHub repo. So that's one way that people can contribute, but we do plan to lean in a lot more into kind of like basically like, the app store for this agentic, like kind of cloud era that we're in. So very excited about that. Kind of like working on different pieces of it. We already, for example, have like a Stripe Connect integration, which is like related to this, where like people can already accept payments. It's like really easy to like add payments to like a website hosted on your Zoho using this Stripe integration, and that naturally leads to like similarly like selling stuff on Zoho. Like maybe you sell access to a file or sell access to a skill or stuff like that.
Very cool. Yeah, because I think about that. Like, what's the new, what's the business model that comes from this? And that's like another thing I think about is, oh, I have this idea and I want to sell it to users of Zoho. Like, I think of it like a
Yeah,
shot, like the Shopify marketplace almost. So it could be. There's like a whole new era here. We just like aren't sure what exactly it's going to be, but it
totally.
feels awesome. That it's happening. And
Yeah.
very, very cool. So as we so we're rounding out about an hour now. I ask a few questions of people at the very end of the show. One of them is, what advice do you have for new engineers entering the field today?
Yeah. I would say be optimistic. I think we are in this golden age of learning. I think it's never been so easy to learn and upskill than before. Like before, it was very hard to get into engineering. When back in the day, I had to like debug manually and like Google search for these things that were really hard to find, and there wasn't that much on GitHub. There wasn't that much open source software back in the day either. Like we have this like gold mine, really for learning about software engineering and learning from the best. There's like so much in terms of resources out there. So I think like it's very easy to get your hands dirty and like get practical skills building projects. Yeah, I think like building up that taste and experience just through doing is super important.
Very cool. Yeah, I agree. The optimism, and it's really never been a better time to learn anything. I talk about the Code Dojo thing that I built. I was like, I would never have taken the time to like try to learn assembly before. And now I'm like, I wonder if Claude Code could teach me. And like, I'd be, instead
Yeah,
of reading about it in a book, like I'm going to be forced to actually write it. Just so you know, it's kind of miserable, not very good at it. But I did actually like sit down and like have to write it and let Claude Code analyze it. And like, I was like,
amazing.
oh, that was kind of interesting. Just these ideas of like never been I remember, I mean, even we even had it good just being able to Google, like going
Yeah,
even back
totally.
further, like you didn't even have that. So it's kind of
Yeah.
amazing. It's just an amazing time to not get stuck and to really just say, hey, I want to go deep on something and really take it further. um, the next question is always, do you have any books that you recommend that people should be reading, that you've read recently, now, anything like that?
Yeah. My favorite book about building things in general is called The Timeless Way of Building by Christopher Alexander. It's an old book, kind of inspired some of the object-oriented programming stuff back in the day, but it's a book about architecture. He's like this architect, and he writes about kind of his general principles for building these like kinds of timeless buildings and places that have like the feeling of nature, that they feel kind of like they've grown organically. And I think that's very relevant to like how code bases develop and how you can like kind of work with AI and people productively to build things in a way that lasts. So this is very kind of like it's a central book in my personal like philosophy about building things.
Very cool. I love that. I probably pick it up myself because I can tell already just the way you're talking about it. I think about the way AI has changed, like how we can even interact with the machine is very natural. Like when you talked about texting your Zoom computer, I'm like, imagine not having to learn a new interface or like
Yeah.
tool like that. I think about that like with our project management tool that we had built. I threw in like an API into an LLM integration that I wasn't sure like how I was gonna like it, but then I was like, oh my god, this is amazing! Like, make these 10 tasks, and it just does it. Like allocate 20 hours to this person on this project, and it does it. And like it's just that ability to kind of the computer kind of stays out of your way in your life almost. It's not like oh where was that button again? You
Yeah.
eliminate so much friction in the natural language. So I feel like this idea that we can actually have natural interactions with the machine is amazing to me.
Totally. Totally.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Ben, we're at 55 minutes. I would love for you to just kind of tell people where they can find you, follow you, and learn more about Zoe.
Yeah. Definitely check out zoe.computer or zoecomputer.com. That's our address. And check it out. It's a really great tool. You can just sign up. It's fully set up for you. We have a generous free plan, and you can do a lot just for free with it. In terms of me, I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn. Definitely follow me. I post a lot. Have a lot of different takes on different things in AI, especially.
Amazing, amazing. Well, we'll link all of that in the show notes. I encourage everyone to check out Zoe Computer. I know I'm definitely going to be checking it out because I'm just super psyched on what you're doing, and I think this is kind of the I love this technology so much. So it's awesome.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for the opportunity. It's been really fun.
Thanks, thanks for coming, Ben.